Hey everyone, Literary Canon here. Hope everyone's having a good Labor Day weekend. I know it's been a long time since I've recorded a video. Work has been kind of kicking my butt, and my readings just slowed down. But today I wanted to come on here and talk about two books that I finished about a month ago, and these are rereads, and those are Jurassic Park and The Lost World by Michael Crichton. And these are two books that I have a long history with. Actually, I read both of these before watching the Jurassic Park movies. It was probably around 2011. I was in, I guess, the 6th grade, 7th grade maybe. So I would have been around 11 or 12 years old, and it was following a vacation to Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, where we went to the Jurassic Park world. And I remember asking my dad, like, hey, how are they able to, like, clone these dinosaurs? And he was like, oh, they took DNA from the mosquitoes that sucked the dinosaurs' blood. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then after the vacation, I was in a Books-A-Million with my mom and noticed the Jurassic Park novel. And I was like, hey, I want to read this. And so she bought it for me. And I remember reading the prologue on the way home from Books-A-Million. And I remember getting home, and my dad had just mown the grass. And so from then on, whenever I think of this book, I kind of smell the smell of cut grass. But I fell in love with these books very quickly. They were kind of, I think, the first, like, adult books I ever read. And they just mean a lot to me. And for a long time, they were my two favorite books. That is no longer the case, especially having read them now, I don't know, 15 years, maybe not that long, 13, 14 years after having discovered them. But they are still very good, and they do mean a lot to me. So, I mean, everyone knows the story. Jurassic Park, John Hammond figures out that you can clone dinosaurs from taking the blood that has been sucked by mosquitoes who have then been trapped in amber and sequencing the genetic code of dinosaurs and then cloning them. And instead of studying the dinosaurs, he places them into a theme park, biological preserve, and his goal is to, of course, make a lot of money, and things go very wrong. Michael Crichton was a very prolific American author, kind of having his heyday, I would say, throughout the 90s. He wrote 29 novels, and other than being an author, he was a screenwriter, he was a director, he worked on ER, which was a very famous television show, and the original Westworld. He was the creator of that. He was a producer in Hollywood, and he was also a medical doctor. And most of the time, the themes in his work include biotechnology, genetic engineering and modification, computers. A lot of his works are kind of cautionary tales, and he's been compared to kind of a modern-day Jules Verne, where he has these characters undergoing an adventure story with scientific underpinnings. And so most of his works are about science and have kind of science as a backbone to them. And, I mean, yeah. So for Jurassic Park and The Lost World, he realized that, I mean, he knew that dinosaurs were awesome and people wanted to read about dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. I've always been a huge fan of dinosaurs. It's funny that it took me until the 6th, 7th grade to discover Jurassic Park, but I have always been a huge fan of dinosaurs. The thing is, though, about these two novels, the dinosaurs are really just a vessel for him to explore the theme that he's more interested in. There's two themes that he's interested in. I would say the first one is the dangers of genetic engineering and genetic modification. And the second one is this idea of chaos theory, which, if you've seen the movie, you know Jeff Goldblum flirting with Laura Dern's character and talking about chaos theory. And the idea of chaos theory is that complex systems like climate and ecosystems and even the economy and turbulent dynamic systems like moving water and moving air. They're very sensitive to the initial startup conditions that they're taking place in. So the famous example is a butterfly in Kansas flaps its wings, and then there's a tornado in Texas or something like that. I mean, it's not those exact locations, but a butterfly flaps its wings somewhere, and then very far away, there's a tornado. Because the initial startup conditions, this butterfly flapping its wings, changed the air movements, changed the air currents, and all these changes piled on and piled on and piled on until there was a drastic effect at the end. And that's sort of what chaos theory is all about. In the 90s, when Crichton was writing these novels, I think this was when the first one was published in 1991, maybe? Published in 1990. Chaos theory was the hot new scientific topic at the time. So he really wanted to write this book, I think, to explore that idea. And then, of course, he just uses the dinosaurs as a vessel to get there. And the way it pans out in the novel is that Hammond's Park was doomed to failure from the start because they didn't properly understand how these prehistoric animals who had never been in the modern world would react to being placed into a modern setting. They knew nothing about them. The park itself, the systems to contain, control, and monitor the dinosaurs were not properly implemented. We all know that the idea of making the dinosaurs entirely female failed from the start because they used frog DNA and certain species of frogs. They use frog DNA to fill in the gaps, and certain species of frogs are able to switch gender or change sex to reproduce if needed. And that happened in the park. And so right off the bat in the park, you have dinosaurs reproducing, and they don't even realize it. They had a lysine deficiency control where if the dinosaurs ever escaped from the park, they needed lysine. They couldn't produce the amino acid lysine themselves. So the dinosaurs in the park are fed lysine supplements to survive. If they don't get them, they'll die within, I think, 48 hours. But then we learned that when dinosaurs did inevitably get off the park, they started eating plants that were high in lysine, like soybeans. So that failed. And then their system of cameras and motion trackers they had in place to monitor the dinosaurs, the number of dinosaurs, they had it pre-programmed to expect a certain amount. So I think it was like 49 maybe. And it was designed to alert them if that number went under what they were expecting, but not if the number went over what they were expecting. So there's a really cool scene kind of halfway-ish through the novel where they're looking at these data tables and they are expecting, okay, so there are 238 animals in the park. Wow, I was way off. And it shows them a list. Let's see if you can see that. A list of all the dinosaurs, the expected number that they're supposed to be, the found number, and then what version they are. And that's an important part too that we'll talk about in a minute. And Malcolm is like, try and see if you can get it to look for a number higher than what they expect. So they change it from 238 to 239. And all of a sudden, another Compsognathus pops up. Instead of expected 49 Procompsognathids, there are now 50. And they set it to search for an even higher number. And then they find 262 animals, and then 270, and then 283. And it turns out there were 292 animals in the park. So almost 50 more. Yeah, about 50 more than what they were expecting. And that's a really cool scene to read, just the way it plays out, the suspense of all these new animals popping up that they aren't expecting. And of course, it's because the dinosaurs were reproducing. So that's chaos theory. The park is sensitive to its initial startup conditions, and as these problems pile on and pile on, eventually it reaches a tipping point, a point of no return, and everything goes wrong. And in the case of Jurassic Park, that ends up with the dinosaurs getting out and killing everyone, right? Not everyone, but a lot of people. If you've only seen the movie, I highly, highly recommend reading the book. It's different. There are bits that I don't like as much of the movie, but there are parts that I do like more than the movie. There's a lot of scenes with the dinosaurs that don't show up in the movie. There's a juvenile T-Rex that's like kind of like 3 or 4 years old, I think, and it's about 8 feet tall, and it's scary. There's a really cool scene in the beginning of the book where there is an American doctor working in a small fishing village in Costa Rica, and all of a sudden an engine helicopter comes up, lands in the village, and engine is of course the John Hammond's company. So this helicopter lands in the village, and they take out a construction worker who's bleeding, and they say it was from a construction accident, and the doctor is looking at his wounds, and she's like, no, this is from an animal mauling. Like, he got mauled by something. And they're like, we don't know what to tell you. He got ran over by construction equipment. And let me find the scene here, right at the very beginning. It really did look like bites, she thought. Then the kid moaned, and she put her camera aside and bent toward him. His lips moved, his tongue thick. Raptor, he said. Lo sa raptor. And she doesn't think much of this at first. She thinks he's talking about a supernatural Costa Rican kind of ghost entity. But then, after the event, the worker dies and engine leaves. She notices they stole her camera that she used to keep track of the bites, or to document the bites, I guess. But so she goes to her English dictionary and looks up the word raptor, and I'll read this part. Bobby went back to her room, remembering again that Manuel had insisted it was not a Spanish word. Out of curiosity, she looked in the little English dictionary, and to her surprise, she found the word there too. Raptor, derivative of raptor, plunderer, bird of prey. And so that little bit just sets you up for the ride you're going to go on with these dinosaurs. It's really cool. And I did say the other theme here is the dangers of genetic engineering. Crichton was very, I think, skeptical of science, and especially corporate capitalistic science. He was also skeptical of science and politics. He was a notorious critic of the idea of human-caused climate change. I'd be curious to see what his thoughts on that are now. But he was for sure a skeptic of corporate capitalist science. And so a huge part of this book is the dangers of genetic engineering for these companies. Here we have Dodson, who is a member of a rival genetic engineering company. And so he's saying, what they have done, Dodson said, is built the greatest single tourist attraction in the history of the world. As you know, zoos are extremely popular. Last year, more Americans visited zoos than all professional baseball and football games combined. And the Japanese love zoos. There are 50 zoos in Japan and more being built. And for this zoo, Engine can charge whatever they want. $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day. And then there's the merchandising, the picture books, t-shirts, video games, caps, stuffed toys, comic books, and pets. Pets? Of course, if Engine can make full-size dinosaurs, they can also make pygmy dinosaurs as household pets. What child won't want a little dinosaur as a pet? A little patented animal for their very own. Engine will sell millions of them, and Engine will engineer them so that these pet dinosaurs can only eat Engine pet food. Jesus, somebody said. Exactly, Dodson said. The zoo is the centerpiece of an enormous enterprise. So we have this idea that they're just going to use these dinosaurs to make money. Hammond in the book, instead of being a cute little old man like he is in the movie, is incredibly evil, very greedy. We have, let me see if we can find a Hammond part here. Well, I'm sorry, I can't find a Hammond part at the moment, but he's pretty rough in the book. He's only really concerned about the money. So that's Jurassic Park. And then we have The Lost World, which is the sequel to Jurassic Park. Jurassic World, the movie, had already been made, and Spielberg wanted Crichton to write a sequel. And so he wrote The Lost World, which was published in 1995. And there's some interesting parts here. In the first book, Ian Malcolm dies, and Crichton just brings him back, kind of retcons it for The Lost World. Malcolm is like, they only thought I was dead. I was just in a coma. But I think it was a fine choice. Malcolm's an interesting character. Ian Malcolm, he was the mathematician in the first book, the kind of proponent of chaos theory. I think he's a bit of a stand-in character for Crichton himself. Malcolm has a lot of moments in the book where he just kind of monologues about science, about capitalism and scientific greed. There's a part where Hammond is like, we're going to destroy the world. And Crichton's like, scoffs at him and is like, you idiot. The world will be fine. It's always been fine. Life has always survived. Life finds a way. But humans are what's going to be in trouble. So I think Malcolm is really Crichton's stand-in character, but he's great in The Lost World. And I actually think, upon rereading these, I think I like The Lost World a little bit more. If you've only seen the Lost World movie, just erase it from your mind. I love that movie, but the book, even more so than Jurassic Park, is entirely different. The only main similarity is that there's a second island, Isla Sorna, where the dinosaurs are actually originally cloned. It's more of their factory island. And they abandoned that island, and so the dinosaurs have been loose, reproducing, existing in nature on their own there for years. And that's about it. There's a couple of the same characters, but beyond that, no similarities, especially plot-wise. So at the beginning of The Lost World, we're introduced to a paleontologist character named Dr. Richard Levine, who is interested in the idea of this lost world, this island that contains leftover dinosaurs. And he at first, there have been sightings of dinosaurs on the Costa Rican mainland. They're getting off of the Isla Sorna island. And at first, he thinks that they're just actually a remnant population from after the Cretaceous extinction event. He meets Malcolm and asks him about his experiences in the first book on Isla Nublar. Malcolm denies it. In the book, they completely shut down. It's all rumors. There's no actual confirmation that dinosaurs existed. InGen went bankrupt out of the first book, and they firebombed Isla Nublar. The Costa Rican government firebombed Isla Nublar, the first island. So it's all rumors, but Dr. Richard Levine has heard enough rumors, and he thinks there's something to it, and he is getting reports of these dead dinosaur bodies on the Costa Rican mainland. There's an interesting part right at the beginning where Malcolm talks about the idea of techno-myths, and the idea here is that all of the original Greek myths and classic Greco-Roman myths have been replaced over time by more of these technological rumors with cryptids and that sort of thing. And I just want to read that section to you because I really enjoy it. Malcolm sighed. Are you familiar with the concept of a techno-myth? It was developed by Geller at Princeton. Basic thesis is that we've lost all the old myths, Orpheus and Eurydice and Perseus and Medusa, so we fill the gap with modern techno-myths. Geller listed a dozen or so. One is that an alien's living in a hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Another is that somebody invented a carburetor that gets 150 miles to the gallon, but the automobile companies bought the patent and are sitting on it. Then there's the story that the Russians trained children in ESP at a secret base in Siberia, and these kids can kill people anywhere in the world with their thoughts. The story that the lines in Nazca, Peru are an alien spaceport, that the CIA released the AIDS virus to kill homosexuals, that Nikola Tesla discovered an incredible energy source but his notes are lost, that in Istanbul there's a 10th century drawing that shows the Earth from space, that the Stanford Research Institute found a guy whose body glows in the dark. Get the picture? You're saying InGen's dinosaurs are a myth, Levine said. Of course they are. They have to be. Do you think it's possible to genetically engineer a dinosaur? So I really like this because I think even in our modern age, with like all the verified accounts on Twitter or X now that spread like ideas like this, just a couple months ago, there were the idea that there were these like mile deep pillars underneath the pyramids that were like collecting seismic energy. Like Crichton predicted a lot of this stuff that comes to fruition. And when you read about Crichton, you'll hear a lot about his predictions that have come true. He even predicted like cell phones or smartphones. But I like the idea of that techno myth thing. I think that's interesting. I think there's some truth to it. So anyway, basic plot. Levine wants to go to. He eventually figures out what Isla Sorna is, and he wants to go there to study dinosaurs in a natural habitat to try and understand why they went extinct. And this part, I find it a little strange. Kind of the main theme in the second novel is this idea of complexity theory, which is similar to chaos theory, but complexity theory is more so, it's broad. I think chaos theory would fall under the scope of complexity theory. And it's, again, studying complex systems, how they are able to self-arrange themselves, and how they reach either tipping points or maintain balance, adaptations. So evolution would be an idea of a complexity theory. And extinction, here they're studying extinction as complexity theory, and they want to figure out if the reason the dinosaurs went extinct was because they failed to adapt. Crichton, I guess, kind of dismisses the idea of the asteroid, which we know today is the reason they went extinct. And I don't think he believed the asteroid didn't actually happen, but I think maybe he thinks the asteroid was a catalyst, and then the dinosaurs failed to adapt to changing conditions, and they eventually went extinct. It's strange, but it works well enough, I think, for the plot going forward. There's still more ideas about greed in this book, but I think really the plot in this book is a lot tighter. There's cooler dinosaur scenes. There's a lot better characterization with the characters. There's a really cool scene towards the end of the book where there are Carnotauruses, which are the dinosaurs with the two horns. They have very short forelimbs, shorter than T-Rexes. And they're actually able to camouflage like chameleons, but much more so. And they use it to prey on other animals. So I enjoy The Lost World. I think definitely give this one a shot. If you read Jurassic Park and enjoyed it, you might enjoy The Lost World more. I did, for sure. I know there's a lot. This video is a little messy. I just wanted to get my thoughts on these books out. I had sort of a start of a script, but it wasn't working out, so I just thought it'd be better to kind of come up here and just talk about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I've been a little bit slow lately reading, but I am working on Snow Falling on Cedars by David Guterson right now, I believe. And after that, I don't know. I kind of want to do something where I read Beowulf and then read Grendel by John Gardner here and talk about them both in one video, or maybe split it up, but definitely connect the two. So maybe I'll do that. I also have The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe, which I would like to read and discuss. So stay tuned. There's going to be some good stuff coming along. Thank you for watching. Again, sorry this is messy, but thank you for watching. I appreciate it.